have to talk real quick about meaningful data and systemic involvement, improvement. Here is the innovation funnel that I like to talk about. You have so much going on, and there are only one or two things that you are going to be able to support to scale. If you don't pick one or two things, we picked three, but if you don't pick one or two things, it's going to be very difficult to bring anything to scale. So you've got to work and talk about your 1,000 things that are happening. Then you have to talk about your prototype and collect data there. Then you've got to get to level 2, which are these pilots. We have, and it sounds like you have, been very good at getting to level 2. Going from level 2 to level 3, have you done it yet? Achieving the Dream is our first, Achieving the Dream and Life Map is our first example of taking something to scale. Life Map is actually farther along than Achieving the Dream work is, but those are two examples I can give you that started as innovation that have now gone to full scale. But if you don't focus, you're not going to get there. And this is our little funnel that we go through, and it's understood. Our president drew it on paper, and he was going to toss it away. Like yours, I think he just wings a bunch of stuff, and it just comes right out of him, and it's just kind of like, wow, that's really good. And he likes to draw these little drawings. So this was on a napkin in a restaurant that one of the folks from my consultant team grabbed and decided to put it on paper like this. So everybody was in agreement on what our issue was in terms of innovation. Okay. Last but not least, we talk about the data team, and this one I'm not going to go in detail on. I just want to show you where we started. Huge difference from going from data to meaningful information. I can tell you a lot of folks, and a lot of what we used to do in higher ed, is we were caring about the number of students in the seats. We were caring about the number that made it here, the number that made it there. When did we actually talk about the qualitative stuff, which is the student experience? Where is that information? So you've got to figure out how to get that qualitative data, how to process that data as a group, not our single person in institutional research processing it and putting it out. So you've got to have those conversations about the message you're trying to present. One of the things that I've learned by doing this work is the English faculty in particular want the bullets. They don't care about really seeing the charts. They want the bullets. They trust the fact that we know how to interpret data. But if you take this same to the hard sciences, the social sciences, or the mathematicians, or the statisticians, or any of these other groups that business, right? Take this to any other groups without your ends, without all of those variables described, how much distrust is going to be built in there because they think you're just making the data up. If I can't see the data, I think you're messing with me. You're making it say what you want it to be, because statisticians will say this. Statistics, you can show anything if you play with the numbers long enough, right? Okay. Hugely important is to not let the cycle stop. So I want to make sure you know that. Also, there's different types of data. Let me go to that. Term-based strategy level, based upon whatever you're doing, there's data that should just be shared within your group of professionals. As you're starting to build this safe space for sharing data and talking about it, it might work better, and something might work better with your English students than work with your math students. You need to learn from one another. You need to have that conversation about how did you get them to do X, Y, Z? I see your data shows this. You need to make it safe. You need to make it collegial. And I need to remind you that teaching is a lonely job. You're in the classroom. You are your own manager, your own boss. You're in there. You're having your experience. You forget sometimes how to work as a team and how to have these honest conversations, right? Hugely important that you talk about the different data that you collect. 2- and 4-year global measures, you have to broadcast those. I wouldn't do year 1. There's something called an implementation dip that most everybody has seen, and your data just does this little boom, like your first year trying something. So if you're not staying the course, what happens is somebody looks at the data and says, it's just not working. You're like, well, no, it's quite proven. There's something called the implementation div. And you got to give it another year, and you got to learn from it, and you got to use that information to make it better at your institution. If you look at a lot of data, you'll see that probably when you guys switched over to recycling, it probably wasn't having an impact right away, right? When you guys went from just throwing things in the trash, right? Putting it in the recycle bin. Right away, people weren't walking that extra 20 steps to the recycle bin, right? So that's my point. It takes a while to retrain folks to do things another way. So give that some time. Snapshots, I already talked about this. Data, English folks were happy with this. Math folks, statisticians, other folks said, okay, so you're giving me percentages. Percentage of what? What was the end? Where's the charts? Wait a minute, you're only comparing them within the semester. What happened to previous times? So then we started looking at trend lines, following them over the years. That says a whole bunch more, and that's more informative about your cohort. Cohort tracking is something you really need to consider and do, if you're not already. Last thing, data-driven to data-informed. I already talked about that, get the students involved in the conversation. Okay. I'm just going to say this. Again, you can see everything's gone to a trend line. All the data that we collect has gone to trend line data. You can see those are our benchmarks that we continue to track, and we actually went back to 97 to start tracking those. Followed 97, that's the first cohort we started to track with our computer models. And you can see that we've seen everything has been increasing over the years. I'm going to quickly get through this. That's achieving degree stuff. Also, we looked at the gateway courses that we targeted. Hugely important. You can see a great big change here from where we started to where we are now. The achieving degree years are counted in the second circle that I had up there. And then again, the fall to fall and fall to spring, fall to summer, all those retention rates that you've always reported, you still want to capture all of that. But trend line them so you can see if the line is trending up or not. If you're not, remember I said capture the data so you have a starting point? That's what I'm asking you to do here. Certificates earned by year. I think this is important. These are the non-AA students, non-AA, so these are the certificates. So it's important to track them as well, because they might be going through this and end up having, you've got to account for the students that say they're degree seeking and then end up getting a certificate and then they're not. So you definitely still need to track those as well.